Hello. Welcome to another installment of the Central American Group's podcast, in which experts discuss topics related to doing business in Costa Rica, El Salvador, and the rest of the region.
Hello, welcome to another installation of the Central American Group's podcast. In this episode, we have the pleasure of speaking with Andrew Crawford. Andrew is with a Costa Rican governmental group called Procomer, and I will let him tell us a little bit about himself and his organization. How are you doing today, Andrew?
Hey, Stephen. Thank you for having me. Like you said, I'm Andrew Crawford, Trade Commissioner and Director of the Export Promotion Agency of Costa Rica. I'm based out of Houston, Texas. I cover the Southwest of the United States, including some mountain states as well. And I've been involved in the field of export and foreign direct investment promotion for the last 18 years. And I've been representing Costa Rica in different countries and in different avenues for trade development. Right now, our focus is basically the central U.S. and showcase and represent Costa Rica to give a better understanding of what are the opportunities that we have going on in the industry of advanced manufacturing and any others that are available in our country, and show a great potential to do business in the United States.
We had the good fortune of meeting last week at a conference in Austin, Texas, and one of the things that was pretty impressive is when one of the speakers asked the attendees how many of them had had the opportunity to visit Costa Rica. It looked as though 90% of the audience's hand was raised. And after that,
yes,
it was determined that most of the folks down there had been visiting for tourism purposes. But, as the program progressed that day, we spoke a little bit about Costa Rica's capacities beyond tourism. In addition to that and agribusiness and some real estate investment, there are other sectors that play an important role in the Costa Rican economy and its development. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, and it really made me laugh last week as well when I basically, saw so many hands that were raised by the time they asked about being in Costa Rica. I was so happy about it because it really reflects the level of connection that U.S. people have with my country, and I really felt proud of it. But there's a secret, I would say, Stephen, that many people are not aware of. And Costa Rica's GDP in tourism is just about 5% of the total production of the economy, whereas non-related tourism exports represent more than 30% of the GDP. So Costa Rica is an export-based country, and only 5% of that export-based country is tourism. The other 30% is just general exports in many other sectors. And that's something people, most of the times, they just don't know about it. And in the meantime, the main product of our economy right now in terms of exports is medical devices and equipment related to the industry in medical devices. That's something that many people are not aware of. We have more than 30 years of experience and extensive knowledge in the advanced manufacturing industry. So we could say the country has become a key contributor within the industry. Right after Mexico, Costa Rica is the second largest exporter of medical devices to the United States. And basically that is because we have been able to develop a robust supply chain, a country that really focuses on offering reduction programs in terms of cost. We really try to make sure that our talent is totally involved in the problem solving capacity, which is something that we really like if we compare it ourselves to other countries, which are more focused on high intensive production, but not much more into like the questioning the processes of production. And our talent is really focused on that. The possibility of designing, prototyping, doing research and development. So we could say the country has become a sophisticated destination for the advanced manufacturing, Stephen, for sure.
One thing that's pretty impressive that I learned over the last few years of having contact with a free zone with whom I work in Costa Rica is the fact that Costa Rica in the late 40s abolished its army And at that time, I believe that they were putting about 7% of GDP into the armed forces. And ever since the late 40s, that funding has been put into health and education. So, in Costa Rica, you're getting a highly trained workforce that's quality. And from my understanding, English is taught from a very young age. So you're getting bilingual, well-trained, well-educated workers.
Absolutely. And maybe that is one of the reasons that we have been seeing how a proven track record has been consolidated in the country for, attracting, these type of investments and projects to Costa Rica. Some of those, tangibles that you mentioned, Stephen, are hard to find in Latin America. And I'm not just, bragging about it. It's just the reality. If you go to OECD, statistics, if you go to World Bank statistics, if you go to World Economic Forum statistics, you're going to always see Costa Rica in the very top list of those, organizations. And that really, is part of the decision-making process that companies, evaluate when they just trying to do an investment or trying to find new partners in a region. For example, right now in Costa Rica, you could say like more than 380 high-tech companies have presence in the country. Out of that number, 40 are Fortune 500 companies. And the most interesting thing is that 14 of the top 30 medtech OEMs of the world are also operating in Costa Rica. When I go to the aerospace exports, the component is a 38% of high-tech content to global value chains when we talk about aerospace. When you talk about medical devices, you're gonna find that we go from class 1 to class 3 medtech products that are basically being developed in the country. Another asset that is a very interesting thing. 99% of the energy of Costa Rica is a clean energy. It's either hydro, solar, wind, or geothermal. So you become a manufacturer supported by a clean energy grid in Costa Rica once you decided to do business down there. That's a great thing for those who are really, focusing and understanding the impact that we can have in the environment. And maybe one of the interesting things that I would like to also highlight when you mentioned about the quality of the investments that we have in education. We do have created an ecosystem of qualified, savvy, STEM-oriented talent that question the processes. They question the processes and the projects and how basically things should be run. And that is a key highlight. Multinational stakeholders, decision makers always put on the table when we ask them how they feel about Costa Rica. So if you put that equation along with the tax incentives that we offer, which are basically part of the Zona Franca or the free zone model, I mean, the possibility of coming with a fast-paced ROI in a short to mid-term is just, a great possibility. And that's basically what we try to present and offer when we present the case of Costa Rica, Stephen.
Yeah, one of the things that you brought up is the free zone regime in Costa Rica. And what we've seen is that although some countries may have lower line worker wages, when you factor in Costa Rica's tax breaks that they give to companies that locate there, Costa Rica comes out pretty favorably in terms of total cost of doing business. So I think that that's important for listeners to know. When companies come to Costa Rica, what do you see mainly in terms of business structures? Do they look to establish contract manufacturing facilities? Do they look to do greenfield investments from the ground up? How does that work?
Well, I think it's a combination of both, Stephen, from my perspective. And when you want to do an assessment of a project, sometimes companies go like, I want to do contract manufacturing in the first case. And if things basically they goes well, I'm just going to jump into a foreign investment. That's basically how they like to start the process. And we have the platform available for that. So it's not only the free zone regime is not only taught for huge investors and investments. I mean, a minimum investment of $150,000 in assets is the minimum investment that you're going to need in a specific period of time to be completed in order to, basically use those incentives that we have and we put available for a number of years. That's basically another conversation, a little more technical in terms of all the aspects. But anyways, it's just a matter of understanding that the level of investment that you're going to need in Costa Rica for being able to receive those incentives is $150,000. And that's something that really calls the attention of many people. We always present the government stability as a great factor in terms of making a decision. Costa Rica is a very friendly nation to the United States. Is the oldest democracy in Latin America, which is something that creates certainty in our case. People also, they ask us what the ecosystem offers in terms of the capacities between the OEMs and the different tiers that operate down there. The level of linkages that flow on a daily basis from those tech parks in Costa Rica, free zone parks, one park to the other, interchanging and working together for developing a project. And most of these linkages come along with programs which are fostered by the government as well, that we get very much involved in those programs for fostering and developing linkages in between. And in the meantime, being able to work along with another portion of the government, which is the Training Institute, which facilitates the possibility of creating curricula and capabilities and training totally specific to the needs of a company. So we also get involved in that. The academia get involved in that. And those who invest, they can also get the benefit of, being, funded for a number of employees that might take part of their payroll or might take part of their project in the near future. So those are the type of things that we try to put, together. And in the meantime, another interesting secret that we have in Costa Rica, Stephen, is that there are no unions in the private sector in Costa Rica. We rather decided to develop a model that creates a fund between employers and employees to properly address needs such as like money lending with attractive interest rates, people that need seasonal savings for supporting different moments of the year in terms of spending, for example, a back to school moment of the year, which is something that really becomes a burden for families. And that fund is even able to cover the process of a future severance in case takes place. So the name of this is Workers Association or Asociación Solidarista, and it's a free will and non-mandatory model that basically works. And we always present it to investors as a great way to keep up with a relationship with their employees, keep them motivated, and in the meantime, deal with the realities of the legislation in Costa Rica in terms of being also supporting economic and social development of their employments as well.
Well, that's a lot of good information. One thing that I think we'd be remiss if we didn't touch upon in our conversation is the whole concept of nearshoring activities.
Yeah.
Could you tell us how those activities may have accelerated, especially in the times of supply chain difficulties with, companies that are far flung and geographically distant from North America?
Yes, and that's a great question, Stephen, and I think I don't only want to relate this case to Costa Rica, but we've seen the Americas itself experiencing the realities of having a lot of Western companies come into the conversation of what can I do in your country and what benefits do I get if I do something in your country. But when you get to do the assessment of the different, countries that are in the conversation, for some reason, Costa Rica, and I don't want to disregard at all any others, but Mexico, Costa Rica are in a very, competitive conversation, both with their characteristics and their features and their specifics, because at the end of the day, you cannot compare them at the very same level. But for one purpose, one country works pretty well, and for other purpose, the other country might work pretty well. But both countries are in an interesting conversation right now in terms of how we see a greater number of companies trying to see at what level they can do relocations or bringing their contract manufacturing processes to the Americas. So we want to say that that has given us the leverage of not only calling ourselves a nearshoring destination, but also a friendshoring destination in a global context like the one that we are facing right now. And this friendshoring, let's say, destination that we call ourselves because of the great level of relationship we have with the United States, also comes along with the free zone regime incentives that we offer that are very friendly and are very, in a path that is expected to basically solve many of the financial problems and global value chain problems companies have during these, present times. So the work that we have seen has increased about 30% from year to year, and totally is related to companies questioning what can I do? How can I do it? We've been signing a good number of NDAs this year because there's some interesting projects that we cannot disclose clearly at the direction they go. And in the meantime, when you mention to these companies, this is a safe destination. We don't have an army since 1948. You're going to find extremely good literacy rates, people who speak more than 2 languages, 3, 4 languages. You're going to have daily flights from and to the main cities in the United States, coast to coast. You're not going to have a language barrier. Most of the people in the business field in Costa Rica speaks fluent English. You're not going to have issues with time zones in the meantime. You're going to find high quality certifications at different level in terms of the different programs that you're going to have. And one of the key elements is that you're also going to find certainty in terms of free trade agreements. We have 15 free trade agreements implemented with the United States, with Europe, with Canada, even with China. We have a free trade agreement that helps us to bring down raw materials and intermediate goods to transform them into the free zone and then export it to third markets, including the US. So this gives access to 2/3 of the GDP. We have access to more than 50% of the global population that are basically living in those countries that have a free trade agreements with Costa Rica. And we are pretty much, feeling that the country is a small lab to become an international solution for those companies who are trying to reduce processes, issues with rework, production costs, the barrier of language, and any other aspects that, we find when we try to go far east or we go to Asia, Stephen.
Andrew, one of the aims of the podcasts that we do is to present people with useful and relevant information. But beyond that, what we like to do is offer folks like yourself as sources of information and assistance to listeners that have an interest in Costa Rica and Central America as a whole. That being said, can you do 2 things to close it out? Number 1, tell us the services that Procomer can offer to people that are potential investors. And number 2, tell our audience, please, how they can get into contact with you at your Houston office so that you can be of service to them.
Absolutely, Steven. And maybe the most important thing that you got to keep in mind, and so the audience, is that since we're a government entity, our services are 100% free of any charges or fees. Our services are totally free, which is something that is very important in terms of the quality of information that we generate, the due diligence information that you might need to understand the process for doing business with Costa Rica. Everything is basically free. Now, stuff that we basically, and we usually do, we offer the possibility of traveling to Costa Rica any time of the year, and we will provide assistance. We can basically funnel down a specific profile of companies that require a specific type of, spec for a project. So we can basically present those companies, do the homework of finding those companies, which are basically part of our export platform, do a pre-filter to those, potential, suppliers to a specific, client in the United States. If those, capabilities are well, we can do or organize a visit to Costa Rica, or we can do a remote set of calls with this supplier. We can basically assist with the process of giving an understanding of what is the level of the culture to business in Costa Rica. If you want to go down to Costa Rica and do facility visits, we can also prepare that to you. We can drive you down around the country. We can present you with stakeholders down there. We can basically connect you with the different stakeholders that are related to the different let's say, responsibilities that the country has constructed in the foreign trade infrastructure that we have available. So every single player in the field will get to, facilitate the information and services that they need. And in the meantime, if they need logistics, let's say, connections, if they need legal connections, if they need any type of other stakeholder connections in the process of understanding what will be the best way to manage a project with Costa Rica, we can also do that. We're the very first entry, and we create all the platform for that purpose. So we have, given this service for many years. We have satisfied customers all nationwide, from the East Coast to the West Coast to the Central US. We have cases, some very specialized, projects that we have put down for investing or for contract manufacturing that requires the protection of intellectual property. I mean, everything will be depending on a case by case. That's something that we can create and build. We also have an event every year, which is our contract manufacturing tour. We do it every September, where we gather a list of manufacturers in different regions in the United States, and we organize site tours where we include transportation. We provide even accommodation and meals during that week in September, so companies can have, like a cater service from our government during 1 week, and we take them to the different facilities and develop the agenda during that specific week. We also have some other venues during the year that we can help to connect. And they can use my direct email to reach me out, Stephen, which is the initial letter of my name, which is A, that as part of Andrew, my name. A would be my the first letter of the email, and then Crawford, CRAW, F as in Frank, ORDA, Crawford, at Procomer, which is P as in Paul, R as in Robert, O as in Oscar, C as in Cat, O as in Oscar, M as in Mary, E as in Edward, R as in Robert.com. A Crawford at Procomer.com. That's basically my email, and you can hit me with a phone call as well, which is 832-940-8587. 832-940-8587, Stephen. And thank you for allowing me to just present the case of Costa Rica and sharing this valuable information with your audience.
This is very useful information. I'm sure that those that listen to it will put it to good use. I want to thank you for joining us today, and hopefully we'll have a lot of interaction in the future.
Appreciate it, Stephen. Wish you a great afternoon and very best for the rest of your week.
Thank you for listening. Sign up to receive the Central American Group's quarterly newsletter by visiting www.thecentralamericangroup.com.